You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and not with me in person is my co-host, Justin Raffoff, but he is joining me via telephone. Hey, Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, I'm ready to talk a little bit of high school football here, and we don't have a lot to talk about Wilson specific, just a few things we want to clear up, as things have changed in the last 2 months since we did the winter update when we had Chad Henne here with us to talk mostly about his time with the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, which was very interesting. So we'll clear things up Wilson specific that we maybe glossed over the last time we had the show 2 months ago. But we're also not alone. We are joined by a gentleman, a first-time guest, related to something that Wilson football competed in online recently. If you're follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you probably saw me posting daily for a while about getting votes for the Pennsylvania Football History's Best Helmet in Pennsylvania contest. And joining us this evening is the man who did the graphics for all of that. If you're familiar on Twitter with this contest, you saw his football helmets and the grassy state of Pennsylvania everywhere. And his name is Chris. His account is at END2008. So, Chris, thanks for joining us here on the Bulldog Hour.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Chris, why don't you just do a little brief overview of yourself, your relation to high school football, and how you got involved in creating schedules and helmets and this contest. Just kind of introduce yourself.
Oh, certainly I will. My name is Chris, and I'm actually from Bradford County, which is up near the New York state line. I have a passion for high school football. It started probably back in the late 70s when I followed a writer named Ronnie Christ, who wrote for both the Patriot News and the Pottsville Republican. I decided that I was going to follow high school football and kind of make it a passion. The art part of it kind of just came. And the reason that happened was I worked at a big chemical company up here called DuPont, and they had a program at the time where they had to use Photoshop in one of the processes. And I started doing it, and I'm not an artist at all. And I just decided, I'm going to try to make this happen. So as far as my handle, at END2008, that simply stands for my son's high school. He went to Elmira, Notre Dame, and 2008 was the year that I joined Twitter. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of my background. In that main fact is I'm a high school football fanatic.
Yeah, my favorite part of that is that you don't have a graphic design background. You just started doing this, and now your stuff is on easternpafootball.com, and you work with the at PA_FB_history account on Twitter. How did you link up with him? Have you worked with him in the past? Is this something that did he come to you? Did you go to him? How did the helmet contest come about?
Yeah, actually, that's a real good question. He actually like to do this massive project that we're going to undertake. There are 563 teams, and I actually had all of them complete at that point. So he said, would you like to get in a bracket tournament for the best high school football helmet? And I said, sure, that would actually be easy because all the artwork was really done. My part of it, I didn't have any planning or anything. It was all done. He decided to do this and was going to try to make it, a statewide thing. And rather than just having a few select schools, he wanted to give a chance for every school to be involved. So that's 563 helmets. There was some 208 polls. We ended up with 83,000 votes, and Coleman Township came out the winner.
Yeah, now that was an interesting design, and they talked about how difficult it is for them each season because each, I believe, part of the feather has to be put on individually. How about for you to draw that one? Was that one of the most difficult for you to design digitally?
Actually, what I actually did with that was probably one of the hardest ones I had to draw. I kind of mostly hand drew that, and I just approximated where it had to go because most of your I do a side view right now. I'm working on doing a three-quarter view, so I kind of approximated on the flat, and to myself, I thought, well, it's not great, but it's the best I can do. And when I looked at it, it actually kind of does match the helmet pretty closely.
Yeah, I mean, it looks incredible. I like seeing the actual pictures of the helmets that some of the teams that were in the contest and participating, they would tweet out pictures of the actual helmet. And I mean, your designs were perfect. You got a lot of great feedback, and I'm sure I would hope that you got a lot of people following you as a result.
I picked up probably 200, and the PA football history guy actually picked up, I think, over 1,000.
Wow. Well, both your accounts are incredible follows if you're into high school football. So this was a great way, during this this quarantine where people are looking for stuff to do, anything related to sports, and especially all the accounts we follow in high school football. It was an incredible tournament to watch unfold. I am incredibly happy with how Wilson ended up performing. We ended up winning District Three, although we couldn't quite make it to the Final Four. My goals changed every time we advanced, but I was happy to win District 3 and appreciate all the time you've done because I've messaged you a few times with some tweaks here and there because you also do the schedule graphics, which is really cool for easternpafootball.com. And do you have an off season, or is this something that you're always working on?
I just retired, so but I'm a young retiree. They treated me well at the company, and I can do it pretty much all the time. But I think because I want to get better at it, I just keep practicing and by the way, each of these it's just repetition at some point because you do one helmet and it's just the next one and the next one and the next one.
Right.
So
It becomes a little easier once practice makes perfect, right? You just move on and
and I and I think I spoke to you or I had talked to you earlier about the Wilson helmet. One of the first accounts I ever followed when I first started drawing helmets was Wilson. I think partly because I knew of the history of the program uh, and because of the Twitter site for Wilson football and also your site. And I was kind of fascinated that a larger account like that, plus you do a wonderful job of the history. And that's another thing that I'm into. I would love to start doing throwback kind of designs because that is kind of fascinating to me.
well,
How
that
the
is certainly something that I can assist you with. If you would ever need a guinea pig, I'm sure you and I can hook up and I can send you photos and reference stuff that I have. Justin knows this all too well.
Yeah, there's if you're looking for resources on Wilson football, Joey is your man.
Yes, I used him several times. Again, I spoke to Joe about this. When you get a larger account, that's you get more information. I was telling him some of the smaller schools out in the northwest part of the state, it's tough to even get a picture of what the helmet looks like, let alone a throwback. So it's kind of great that you have people that are passionate about football and do for their schools and do for their programs. Another one, and I think I talked to Joe about this through a DM one time, is the Minersville program. I know about the history of that, and the coach there follows me, and he sent me a shot of their new helmet. And there's another Twitter user. His name is Shane, and he's a historian. And I just eat that stuff up because one, it's knowledge, but two, they're great resources to do work.
Yeah, well, I mean, you did an excellent job. You were able to produce some of these, like it just felt like on the fly. Like all of a sudden, you're like, here it is. When you tagged me in the Minersville ones, that was just super cool to see the head coach basically unveil what they're going to be wearing, which is kind of a retro throwback that they're bringing back, which with the miner on the helmet, which is super cool. I had said and I had posted using your graphics. Um, I posted my favorites. I took like a top three from each of the Pennsylvania districts. I was just like, hey, these are the helmets that I really like. And Minersville was one of them. I think they're the runner up in the district. Um, but then I think it may have been that day you were like, hey, check this out. And Minersville's changing their helmet, and I already drew it up. So that was really, really cool. And it's awesome to get feedback like that immediately and for you to be on top of things and produce it as teams update what they do. So you've spent obviously a lot of time. What did you say? It's over. Is it 530, 560? How many helmets are there?
There in the state of Pennsylvania, there are 563. I also do what is known as the inter AC, which is the non-PIAA schools.
Okay.
Plus, I've done probably close to, I'm going to guess close to 2,000 throughout the United States, just because
Wow.
for example, I sent out today a couple. There was an online, and I believe that you were involved in it.
Yes.
And there are some really neat. One of my favorites that I drew up was this team from Montana, the Chinook Sugar Beaters,
Yeah. Yes.
and they have this really great. It's a picture of a kind of a sugar beet looking thing with two beaters at the bottom by where his feet would be, and just some of the mascots and the designs are quite unique.
So of all the ones you've done, the main helmet for the 563 uh, programs in Pennsylvania. Do you have like just a handful that jump out to you as some of your favorites? Did we see them make the finals at all?
Actually, I just quickly, yes. One, and I'll just do quickly through District 3, for example. Actually, Wilson was one because you changed the W, and that was an old throwback to the name style. Out of District 2, I kind of like Old Forge that has this Blue Devil.
Yes. I believe I considered them for mine as well.
Minersville, I actually liked in District 11, not only with the old logo, but I really like that new logo. And District 9, St. Mary's came out with this great, and you don't capture it in the flat view, but they have an anchor coming down the middle with the chain and the pirate flag. So those are a few that stick out to me in terms of really great designs, really great, programs that the Minersville one, for example, I can get all kinds of information. So the minute they change, I can get with the coach and I can get that information. But going back to the Wilson one, I found it interesting. I had talked to you earlier. I really liked the Bulldog, but when you told me you were changing, I thought, well, I hope that doesn't affect the tournament, because I really thought the Bulldog was better in terms of the design because it was more up to date. Because sometimes the throwback people get a little turned off by going back in time. So I was really surprised to see how Wilson did, to be honest with you, because it's a throwback design that you threw together, and I was like, I like the Bulldog much better.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because the throwback to the W in football, which was used from the late '60s through the mid '70s for I think about or right around a decade. Uh, it's been pretty well received around here because I believe I mentioned this to you, or maybe I sent this to the history page for the tournament that we used variations of that bulldog for over 40 years. So it was something that was commonplace around here. So going back to something different, it was, I guess people just thought it was time for a change and to go back. At least I thought it was only a 1 year thing. Last year, as you made the helmet for the schedule page. The one side had the Bulldog with the 75th season. The other side had the retro W in football, and I thought that was it. And then when I was told that it was looking like they were going to put the W in football on both sides, I was a little surprised because I thought that was just 75th season helmet and we'd be back to the regular Bulldog. But people really liked the W in football, and they decided to put it on both sides of the helmet. And I've had thought for sure that we would get some blowback from it, but I actually think a lot of people like it. And as we saw, and I think you were in the one discussion, at least you were tagged in it as someone was replying to one of your photos, that we kind of were getting ribbed because the Bulldog is like they consider a standard, copy paste Bulldog, generic Bulldog that's used by so many teams around the country. And I pointed out, I was like, well, I'm not sure any other teams use that in Pennsylvania. And as the contest went on, I think there was one other in Pennsylvania that used a Bulldog very similar to what Wilson has used over the years.
The Bulldog is actually, to me, at least to me, this is my thinking, is better when it's a full picture Bulldog versus you'll see like the Georgia type Bulldog.
Right.
With the thing, I'm not a fan of that. The full Bulldog, but the Bulldogs vary in terms of the way they stick their tongue out, the way their teeth are made. So the Wilson is very unique, I will say that, and it's one of the better Bulldog designs.
The one Bulldog design that jumped out to me that I really did like was the Red Bank Valley one. I like that. I think it also stands out to me because it's kind of the inverse of Wilson, because they have the red shell with the white stripe, whereas we're always the white shell with the red stripe. So their gray Bulldog. Now that is just the head, but I do enjoy that one. Of course, that's in District 9, where some of the best helmets were in this contest. Their final 6 was just absolutely great, because that Bradford one is amazing. I really like Brookville. They actually were my champion from District 9. Cameron County is very similar to Pennsylvania's state champion helmet. Then you have Red Bank Valley and St. Mary's with that pirate flag. Those are some really, really quality helmets in District 9.
Yeah, and I think for a smaller district, that's quite the thing, because you're talking maybe 50 miles between some schools at times or better, and each school is pretty unique out there. I mean, there's a few that are kind of bland, but I wish schools would actually do more of that. Not because I like to draw them, but because I think typically you'll either get text or lettering, and I don't think they do their mascot a service by not promoting the school that way. I mean, a lot of schools will, if you start with D, they'll put a D on there, and sometimes I get it, but most of the time I'd like to see the schools promote themselves, because that's really what it's about to me.
Yeah, and we saw, the ones that made it to their district championships, and then those final 12 in the state, those schools really got out the numbers of voters. I was very impressed by Marple Newtown against Wilson and St. Joe's Prep. They had an incredible turnout, and they actually catapulted themselves all the way into the state final, beating, I believe, was it East Stroudsburg in the Eastern final? Is that who they beat?
I don't recall that. I was trying to think of that, actually.
Yeah, I think it was East Stroudsburg.
That is the interesting thing about that is the number of votes. We were kind of hoping that people would vote. Some have loyalty. We get that, but for example, in District 3, another one I like in District 3, and it was competing with Wilson, would be the Milton Hershey Spartan.
Yes.
And I don't know anything about Milton Hershey. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but the color combo and the Spartan was really neat. So if I had to pick one that doesn't anything to do with anybody I follow or anything, just design and color scheme, would be Milton Hershey.
Yeah, and they're actually the one that I picked as my favorite in District 3, not including Wilson in the discussion. Milton Hershey was the one that got my favorite. Then, of course, I refer to them as the Trojans and not the Spartans, mixing up my Hershey's, my Hershey schools. So, but yeah, no, they have a great one.
And St. Joe's has a big following. I'm not impressed with their helmet. It's kind of a burgundy, kind of a reddish with just a hawk. But obviously you had, the DeAndre Swift era, you have all those followers, and it's a nice helmet, but it's not, I didn't think it was top tier. And just the number of voters, it's very hard to satisfy people that are voting just based on numbers. So
right, yeah. I'll be honest. Obviously, I was gonna vote for Wilson because that's kind of my thing. That was gonna happen no matter what. But any of the other districts that I was voting in, I was voting for what I liked the best. Didn't matter if I loved or hated the team. I wanted to see the best helmets advance, and for the most part, I felt that a lot of them did. So I think there were a lot of people, they were voting for their hometown team, but outside of that, they were voting for what they really liked aesthetically. Because I think we ended up with honestly the best helmet in Pennsylvania winning the tournament. So I think it did a really great job, and it'll be interesting to see if the national tournament comes out, as I've been hearing rumors about.
Yeah, I talked a little bit with the gentleman from the PA football history. Account just actually started, and I can't think off the top of my head the name of it, but it's going to be the national tournament, and he's already starting to pull together information from several states. I know at one point he was over a dozen already, and he's looking to get each tournament from each state. So in our case, in case of Pennsylvania, Como Township will represent, but there are some really bland designs. There's going to be some real great designs. I think there was some big discussion today. This one from Illinois, the Fisher Bunnies.
The Fisher Bunnies, yeah, they are interesting. I love it, and it's not traditional. They don't have it on the side of their helmet. They have it on the front of the helmet, and yeah, it's cool. I'm partial. I like the orange, so they may be getting my vote. I'm gonna roll with Pennsylvania as far as I can, but they're gonna be Fisher Bunnies. I think are gonna be a tough out.
Yeah, I believe so. So yeah, but it's been fun doing this. I think, and I told the two gentlemen that were working with me that it was fun, but to me it was to promote football. That's what I'm all about. I love high school football. I love Friday nights. I love the equipment. I love being around the people, the stands. Football is great in Pennsylvania, so it was just my kind of giving back to football.
Well, Chris, you do a phenomenal job. We appreciate all the work you're doing, with your spare time for fun to promote Pennsylvania high school football. And we look forward to seeing your graphics grace us this football season this fall. Hopefully, we're operating at full capacity and we get to enjoy those Friday night lights. And, everyone, make sure you follow at END2008 on Twitter. That is Chris. And then also, at PA_FB_history. That is the PA football history page. And like Chris mentioned, that account received over 1,000 new followers because of this tournament. And that account is always sending out great information and asking for feedback about the history of football in Pennsylvania. So, Chris, once again, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. And, we'll have to have you back on again soon. Maybe if you and I can hook up for some Wilson stuff. We can have you on. We can debut it on the show sometime.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me.
All right, Chris. Have a good one.
Goodbye.
All right. So that was Chris from the @END2008 Twitter account to talk about the Pennsylvania football helmet competition that was held this past month. And Justin, what did you think about some of those designs we saw in the helmet tournament?
Oh, I loved it. I found myself a number of times looking up and thinking, where is that school? But some of the helmets were just amazing. You kind of talked about it before with the Bulldog thing. Not that all of them are the same, but there are some designs that you see over and over again. And some of those teams I already know. But that doesn't mean they're bad helmets, but it's cool. It was really cool getting to see some of the helmets that I never had really seen before. Like even in the one that Wilson ended up, Marvel Newtown, like I don't recall seeing that helmet before. That's a pretty cool helmet. And just looking through some of them, it was pretty cool. You were talking about and pulled up the District 9 ones earlier. Like, I don't know that I really know about any of those schools, but seeing those helmets was pretty cool. I think I voted for the St. Mary's one. I really like that pirate.
That was listed on my personal list as well. That is a very cool helmet.
Yeah. But I enjoyed it. It would be cool. It would be a monumental task to get a national thing. Like you'd almost need someone to run it for each state, and then just kind of forward it along.
Yeah,
but
I wonder if
it would be cool.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it would be cool. And honestly, I mean, all you really have to do, I I don't know. Like that's the thing. I've never looked to see. Like I know, like a few years ago, like the PA football helmet, thing went together, and that was the first time I had really seen lots of the different helmets. Um, but like I don't know if they have those kind of things available. Like some states, I'm sure it's probably a little easier. I start thinking like Florida, Texas, uh, California. There's just so many schools, but
Right.
it would be incredible to like do that. So
Well, I think the Pennsylvania football helmet competition was the OG, and I think
I think so.
other states latched on. I know Illinois for certain. There were a few others because I see the guys that ran it. Besides Chris at END 2008 and the at PA underscore FB underscore history account on Twitter. There's also Steelers Nat. He was involved in the bracketing and the setup of the pods. So the three of them really set this up, and then I've seen all of them discussing with other state representatives getting this attempt at a national helmet tournament. And I think they're doing exactly what you said. They'd like to get 50 state winners, and then if you think about it, maybe throw in like 14 wild cards or try to get a few runners up in there to get to that 64 helmet bracket and see what happens.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, that would be cool.
I definitely would be cool. I mean, helmet and jersey and aesthetics of sports is very intriguing to me. So this was right up my alley, and I'm very happy that our fans and community got the Wilson helmet all the way to the final 12 in Pennsylvania. Top 12 out of 563. I'll take that.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. I was gonna make a joke when he was talking about the St. Joe's prep helmet. I was gonna make a joke that they probably got a lot of votes from New Jersey, but I figured maybe that wasn't the time. So.
No, yeah, we would never say that. All right, so let's quickly run through our housekeeping before we focus back on specifically the Wilson football team. So we do want to thank our show sponsors, holdovers from last year. They got a couple more episodes before the annual renewal comes upon them. So thanks again to May's Sandwich Shop, our two anonymous donors, Topher's 10th and Elm Cafe, and Mr. Andy Herr, who he is long overdue to make an appearance on this show. Of course, we always want to do it with us, the three of us in studio, and that is not possible right now. But hopefully, when when things clear up and it's a possibility, we can get Andy in here, and the three of us can talk Wilson and Berks and LL football together, because Andy's a great guy and he's supported us for a long time. And one of the highlights of our football season is always when Andy's covering a Wilson game. So
I was going to say, speaking of great sandwiches, like you get at May's Sandwich Shop, I was reminiscing of our Penn Manor trip and grabbing a bite to eat with Andy after the game. Just today when I forget what I was doing, but it crossed my mind and I was just like, oh man. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't compare to May's sandwiches, but it was a good time. The company was good.
Right. Well, I mean, we can't have remote locations everywhere that Wilson plays. We gotta hang out in West Lawn for that. But yeah, it is fun whenever we meet up with Andy, get to talk football and of course with him basketball too. We can't forget about the LL hoops. So if you want to help us here at the Bulldog Hour, you can do so with sponsorship and advertising. Just talk to me about that. We do accept in-kind donations, and visit the website, bulldoghour.com. It's become a great resource for mostly everything related to the Wilson football team. And then always on the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Justin's favorite thing, spreading the word.
Yeah, like and share.
All right, our next live show is scheduled about 2 months from now. That could change depending on if there's any announcements related to summer or fall activities overseen by the PIAA. I believe everything is on hold through the end of June, so don't expect much before July. We will try to have a show at the end of June. Hopefully we'll have information by then. However, that could change. But tentatively, our next show is about 2 months from now, Sunday, June 21st. At 8:30 right here on bulldoghour.com. All right, so let's check out the 2020 schedule now, because it has in fact changed since the last time we were on this show. Episode 6-1 with Chad 2 months ago. We were still wondering for certain what was happening with game number 4, September 18th. and we also thought the Exeter game was away. Well, things have shifted around a bit, and the schedule has been finalized, and Wilson has seen a few shakeups. Both those game 3 and game 4 have changed since the last time we talked. The game 3 against Exeter on Friday, September 11th is now at Gursky. It has been switched from Exeter to Wilson, and obviously we'll just be flip-flopping that next year. So the Bulldogs will travel to play Exeter in 2021. Exeter is visiting Wilson this season. And game 4, there were rumors that it would possibly be Roman Catholic out of Philadelphia. Well, it's now a different Philadelphia school. It is now Martin Luther King, and Wilson will be traveling to play that Philadelphia high school, and that will be a 6:30 start time. Those games down in the Philadelphia district start a tad earlier. So for those of you that are making the travel to Philadelphia to watch Wilson play Martin Luther King, that game will start at 6:30 on Friday, September 18th. The rest of the
That'll
schedule,
be one of the more interesting road trips, just in that we haven't been down that way to play in a long, long time, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm gonna have to hit the hit stats and history book to see how many of those schools we've played, because that's a District 12 school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll have to see how many times Wilson has played District 12 competition.
Well, up until not too long ago, District 12 wasn't even technically in PIAA, were they?
Right, so they've only had the opportunity for like 11 years or something like that.
Right. It feels like a lot longer, but it really hasn't been that long.
Yeah, it's only been a little over a decade, I think, maybe as much as 15 years. Not exactly sure when they started to compete. So definitely a unique opportunity. They got unique colors too, something we don't see often. Purple and gold. So kind of imagine the Minnesota Vikings, but with the Clemson paw print. That's what you're getting from Martin Luther King, and we'll have more about Martin Luther King and the and everything related to that program as we approach the season this summer. We'll try to do a deep dive and get you introduced to them, because everyone else on the schedule, let's face it, we've seen many times. Wilson starts at Central Dauphin in game number 1, returns home for the games against Mifflin and Exeter, two Berks County foes that Wilson fans and community are very aware of, before traveling to that Martin Luther King location for game 4 on the 18th. And then, now you're in the LL stuff with the crossover game against Manheim Central, and then the actual Section 1 games with Penn Manor, McCaskey, Cedar Crest, Hempfield, and then the season finale at Manheim Township on October 30th. Anything else stand out to you, Justin, about the finalized schedule?
It is interesting that, who knows how the season will unfold, but that Manheim Township game being week 10 that's very interesting to me. Like you said, that non-league slate is also interesting, just on the sense that Exeter has really come on strong the last year. So that's big game against Berks County teams in week 2 and week 3. That's kind of fun, and just the way it works out, they're both home. That's pretty interesting too. So yeah, I mean, it's a good run. You look at Central Dauphin, perennial playoff team. Mifflin, perennial playoff team. Exeter has made the playoffs the last couple years. Like you said, we'll get into more about Martin Luther King later on. District 12 is always interesting because you get the public school league versus the private versus the Catholic league champ usually. But Manheim Central, and then, Cedar Crest was better last year and made the playoffs, and Hempfield is, usually borderline, but new coaching staff there. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It should be interesting, but it should be fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that the schedule is coming to focus, because, man, for a while I was really scared that we were only going to get to play 9 games and that 5 of them were going to be on the road, and it just wasn't looking great. And then all of a sudden the Exeter game flipped and Martin Luther King became available. and that's great. So great work by Coach Doms and AD Drew Kaufman to get that ironed out. I mean, because they were put in that situation by the Lancaster-Lebanon League when they decided to switch to 4 sections this year. Now you have to play 5 non-league games, which is incredibly difficult. But again, it probably helped push them to basically confirm a Berks LL schedule, or excuse me, Berks LL team merger starting
Yeah.
in 2022. So get through these 2 years and we should be
funny.
okay.
Yeah, it's funny to me that it didn't really get anywhere the first time, and I know there's a lot more to that, but it didn't really go very far the first time. And I remember saying to you, what's going to happen, what will drive it is if something happens with scheduling that creates a scheduling issue for LL teams like you had with the Berks teams, right? How you had Berks teams who just couldn't get enough teams on the schedule, and
Right.
that's how you ended up with like Wyomissing playing
Mifflin County.
In Mifflin County, schools like that, and Berks Catholic looking to pick up teams, that are non-PIAA schools, and it's been tough for a lot of Berks League teams. Well, then, so like, what does the LL do? They changed it and brought that problem on themselves, which was just odd to me. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem like it was that big of an issue, and then they made it an issue. But hey, I don't get me wrong. Like, I'm glad, and I want to see the Berks LL merger for football. Like, I think that's a good thing for both leagues. So I'm not complaining about it. It just seemed odd to me that they were so apparently dead set against it, and then they created a situation which essentially created a necessity for it. That just seems weird to me.
Yeah, well, Wilson doesn't have a say in that, so we just kind of sit back and
right.
do what we're told.
We're just along for the ride.
Yeah,
which is funny because we're not in the Berks League, but we're in Berks, but we're also right now the only tie, between Berks and LL League. So it's odd.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm throwing up the graphic that I made of the new helmet. Kind of debuted at the end of February on the first show for the 6th season here on the Bulldog Hour. That as far as I've been told, the W in football logo is going to be on both sides of the helmet, and that's what we saw compete in the Pennsylvania football history's best football helmet in PA competition, in which we just talked to Chris about. So if you have anything to say about the helmet, let me know. But you should expect to see this vintage expired retro design on the field full time this fall, hopefully.
There's something I feel like seeing the red design nice and crisp and clean on the modern helmets, which just looks really cool to me.
Yeah.
Like you had sent, and it wasn't in quite this level of detail, but like the like that Eagles mock-up you had sent me, like seeing that, like the old school logos and patterns done with the way uniforms and helmets are done now. Oh man, it looks really cool, I think.
It does, yeah. And and everyone should know by now, I'm not an Eagles fan, but I am a huge fan of the Kelly Green, the old school Eagles jerseys that have been gone now for over 20 years, I believe, because the Eagles changed in the late 90s to this midnight green. And I don't dislike what they have now. I just really hope they can get a Kelly Green, at least an alternate in the future if the NFL relaxes their single helmet used rule. So, but I think Wilson's retro design has a chance to look really neat this fall. And we kind of saw it halfway there this past year, so it's not a huge change. Now, we talked about this at the end of the season 5, following the conclusion of the 2019 season. Just breezed past it at the debut premiere episode of season 6 2 months ago. But looking ahead to 2020, our returning starters and contributors, as far as I know, I don't think any of this has changed. Hopefully not, because we want to see our student athletes continue at Wilson and have a lot of success on and off the field. Offensively speaking, quarterback, 2 running backs, and a receiver coming back. Unfortunately, no offensive linemen return. There's a few that played in there in a reserve role or as a 6th man, specifically thinking about Chase Walters for that role. But primarily, it's Caleb Brown, Mason Leonard, Jaden Jones, and Troy Corson coming back on offense. So we're going to find out real quickly what's going on in the trenches, and also the Bulldogs are looking for a new offensive line coach, as Coach Lorchak became the head coach at Muhlenberg. So we wish Coach Lorchak all the luck in the world, and hopefully he can have great success with that Berks program. But Wilson is going to be not only bringing in 5 new offensive linemen, but also a new offensive line coach for the second time in 3 years after the retirement of Coach Brubaker following the 2017 season. All right, defensively speaking, a few more bodies there. Defensive tackle Jeff Colson, who's been a rotational and a starter for a few years now. Also have a couple end or outside linebackers coming back in Capitano and Santana. Same thing with Jaden Jones playing linebacker some last year. Jack Wagner, the kicker, is also a inside linebacker, and then Mason Leonard and Troy Corson in the defensive secondary. And then the special teams, a lot of the same names I already mentioned. Jack Wagner, the place kicker, holder Troy Corson, punter Caleb Brown, long snapper Chase Walters, and then the kicker and punt returners Troy Corson and Mason Leonard. So a lot of the same names over and over again. So we got to find some depth, and we got to find some linemen. Those are the two big things going into 2020. What do you think about this returning starters and contributors list, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a number of the guys on that list. We've seen them contribute for a couple years. So it's not that there isn't experience that's returning, but like you said, the depth and filling out, I think, on that, when you look at that offensive side, there's a lot there. That offensive line, they'll need to come together. And as we talked about the schedule, they're going to need to come together in a hurry. I know there's a lot of work that goes in over the summer. Typically, who knows what that's going to look like right now? I know there's a lot of work that goes in the spring. Now I know there's a break when there's lots of guys playing other sports. So that is a bit of a change. I feel like most of the winter stuff had concluded because spring sports were pretty much underway. But it'll be interesting to see because it's going to be tough for teams that are used to this 12-month schedule. Not that there's something every day for 12 months. It's not like during the season, but how there's a routine, and then they, the guys have lacrosse or track or baseball or whatever in the spring, and then they come back and here we go. We're into football, starting when school's out, and then all summer, and then into the fall. Well, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't think anybody really knows what that's going to look like. You mentioned PIAA kind of putting things on hold for a while. And understandably, I'm not complaining against that. It's just, it's going to be different. It's going to be different for everybody. It kind of reminds me of when the heat climatization came in, and then it was just kind of like, boom, here we go, and then, same thing when they were when they shifted the playoffs, and all of a sudden, all right, everyone's playing week 0, but like week 1 now, it's just one of those things where teams are going to have to adjust. Everyone's going to have to adjust, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure, and that'll be something we probably talk a lot about on the next show of the Bulldog Hour, episode 3 of the 6th season. In about 2 months, we'll talk about the lost spring practices and the voluntary workouts in the spring, and then the start of the summer program, which Wilson always starts right after graduation when the season ends. That summer program kicks into gear, and that's not even a possibility until July 1st. So we'll talk about what has and hasn't happened because of the global pandemic surrounding the coronavirus on the next episode. A couple of things left here just I want to touch on again because we may not have spent as much time on it last episode due to our guest is the Tradition Club honored Coach Doms for his 152nd win for setting the coaching record at Wilson, the head coaching record. The past meeting in February, just over 2.5 months ago, and President Barriello presented this wonderful duct tape art by Wilson grad Josh Lonneberger to Coach Doms. It was a great evening. We got to surprise him with that, and was very well received. And I know we touched on it a bit 2 months ago, but I just wanted to bring it up again because it was a lot of fun, and it's a great art piece, and Coach Dom seemed to really like it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the Valor Bowl was supposed to be May 28th. I know a bunch of these uh, All-Star games have since been canceled. I did not get the double check to see if the Valor Bowl was, but I assume that
It
it
has
has
been.
been. Okay.
Yeah, it has been.
Because I know that the Big 33 was canceled, and the East West was canceled, and the LL one, the Tri County, was canceled. So I assume the Valor Bowl was, but I just wanted to get the graphic up there one more time to see the 5 players that were going to represent Wilson. These 5 seniors: Adam Venino, Anthony Coper, Avanti Lockhart, Matt Fry, and Nate Keller, were going to be representing Wilson at the Valor Bowl, which was Burks versus Chester's, best of the seniors, and that was to be held on May 28th at Downingtown East. But again, that will not be happening, unfortunately. So then the last thing I have here is just want to take a moment here to just recognize those seniors, not just from football season, but for those that are graduating as part of the class of 2020, and just give them a brief moment in the spotlight here, as things obviously aren't ending the way anyone expected or hoped or wanted them to end, especially those that had events canceled. Obviously we can talk about the sports aspect of that, but there's so many other things, clubs and events and trips and significant events that go on for a high school senior that have just been ripped away, and is incredibly tragic and disappointing. Obviously it's understandable, but it doesn't make it any less difficult to deal with. So just think about those high school seniors. The class of 2020 are going through something literally that I'm not sure many graduating classes have seen in the better part of the last 100 years. So it's a difficult time, but we appreciate everything they did for Wilson throughout the last 12 years. All right. So, Justin, anything else to add here as we wrap up episode 6-2?
No, I think you pretty much hit on it with the the kind of tribute to the seniors. It's not a great situation, obviously, but I'm confident that those guys from the football team and in general the class of 2020 are going to make the best of it. Because that's really all you can do. You can only um, when I going way back to when I coached polo, kids used to laugh all the time because I would all the time say, "Control the things you can control," and it is one of those coaching cliches, but honestly, it it's there's nothing you can do about so many of the things that are happening right now. But the things you can control, those are the things you need to take care of. So I'm confident these guys will go on to do great things. I know a number of them from class, and good guys. So my best to the class of 2020.
Absolutely, well said. And if you would like to hear more from Justin and I, we've been pretty active doing our regular show on the Joe Mays and JRAF show, which is where this all began, and Bulldog Hour kind of became a spin-off of that. But you can listen to Justin and I talk about football, mostly pro, some college, and occasionally we'll talk about the other professional sports leagues. That is a weekly show, the same time slot, 8:30 on Sunday evenings. Visit jmnjrradio.com or joemaysandjraff.com, and you get more of the same from us, just talking about the NFL or college football.
Yeah, you can hear all I have to say about Jalen Hurts getting drafted in the second round.
Yeah, you can hear that next Sunday. So if you would like to hear
Yeah,
Justin's head
I
explode,
I am super thankful we were not live for the second round like we were for the first round, because that could have been a historic day for the show.
well, I
So
did say that you and I had a group chat going with Adam, and all of a sudden it went really silent after we all
yeah.
reacted to the Jalen Hurts pick, and then no one spoke until the next day.
Well,
So
you know that thing where it's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That
yeah.
that was running through my head a lot. And, and so my son got really into the draft. All right, like more so than I thought he would.
Congratulations on that milestone, by the way.
Yeah. So that part of it was awesome.
Make sure you fill out the book.
He's like, well, so he was really mad that KJ Hamler got picked before the Eagles went. However, to be honest, I kept trying to talk him up. I'm like, look, if KJ can't come to the Eagles, like he went to the Broncos, that's awesome. I'm really excited. My sister lives in Colorado. Like, that is not bad, Austin, So going through that whole thing. So he's like, who do you want the Eagles to pick? And I'm like, I'm like, honestly, it doesn't even really matter. Like, I don't know how they could go wrong with, something here. Well, they make the pick. I go, what the? And he looks at me and goes, hey, both their first picks are named Jalen. And I'm like, yeah, yes,
well,
they are.
Very receptive. He's paying attention. This is all positives.
I was stunned. He wasn't nearly as upset about the pick as I was, because he's like, is he not good? I'm like, no, he's good. Like, but then he had the same question. He's like, they already have a quarterback. I'm like, I know.
I know. Wow.
But buddy, we can't get into this right now because Daddy's blood pressure is rising as we speak. So
I'm gonna need to go outside for a second. Don't repeat anything you hear.
Yeah. If I go to sleep, I can't now because I'm angry. So
yeah. Good stuff.
Not to go off on a tangent.
Yeah. So we'll
focus on the positives. My son was super into watching the draft. So
yes.
that was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
That is the main takeaway, and that's something that you can spend father-son time doing now for the next decade or two. So that'll be a lot of fun to enjoy. So, and don't worry, I'm sure the Eagles will disappoint you on more than one occasion.
Well, we joked about that right away. We're like, oh man, disappointed as a Philly sports fan. Welcome.
What
to the
a
club,
surprise!
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. It sucks. You're gonna love it. So we'll be back again in about 2 months, Sunday, June 21st. That's the tentative schedule for the third episode of season 6 of the Bulldog Hour. We appreciate your feedback, your comments, your suggestions, and do leave us reviews on the podcast platforms. You can do so on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, and we would really appreciate you, like Justin says, like and share, spread the word, support us in any way you can. We're looking forward to the 2020 Wilson football season. Wow, we really hope that happens. So for Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays, and until next time, remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.